Gerda is a highly versatile runner with the ability to mix it with the best over 10, 21, 42 and the ultra-distance races. Unlike many top athletes, she was a relatively late developer, coming into running in her mid-20s. She now races in the biggest events in the world, a far cry from her early years in rural South Africa.
I grew up in a small little town called Bothaville in the Free State. And growing up on the farm, it's always been an active lifestyle. We ran around a lot, we played around with all our friends, we cycled to the neighbors. It was an active growing up, but running in a competitive way, it was never part of my growing up at all.
Although she comes from an active family, Gerda's emergence as a world-class distance runner surprised many. She blossomed after joining the Nedbank Athletic Club, where former Comrades Marathon champion Nick Bester identified a rare talent and guided her towards the top. So, are there any other athletes in her family?
I'm definitely the first athlete in my family, which is really strange. And also when I decided to take on running seriously, professionally, it was quite a shock to my family. So no, there's no other athletes in my family, but everyone else enjoys. My sister runs really well, my brother enjoys running, and even my father, he runs, he does races, he does 21-kilometer races and so on. But yes, I'm the first athlete by a long way in my family.
After school, Gerda made the move from Bothaville to Bloemfontein, where she studied towards a BSc in quantity surveying at Free State University. Running was not, at that stage, an important part of her life, but that was soon to change.
My passion for running started, I think I found running when I was in university. I started running with friends just for a little bit of active and to get fitter and maybe stay in shape. But my real passion for running, I found the moment in the leading up of for training for my first marathon. That was in 2015, end of 2014. I started training for it, and that's when I really found the passion of running and running in a community. And yes, it just took off from there.
From running a marathon with a group of friends to finishing among the world's top runners at the New York Marathon is a big stretch. But it took Gerda just on 3 years to achieve that when she came home 13th in 2 hours 31 minutes and 4 seconds in New York in November last year. So when was it that she realized that she had something special when it came to distance running?
The first time I really sort of noticed it was after finishing my first marathon. So I trained with a group of people and we were all going for the marathon, and then I finished the marathon way in front of all my friends. And then I think then I didn't even then really appreciate what I just did and how hard other people had to work to get this, and I just showed up and did it sort of naturally. I think that's when I really started noticing that I have a talent for running. And then of course less than a year after that I did my second marathon where I finished under 3 hours, and that's when I also I really knew that I had to give it a good go.
Gerda was victorious at the 2018 Two Oceans Marathon and went on to finish second at the Comrades Marathon a few months afterwards. A phenomenally quick rise from keen amateur to top professional does indicate a naturally gifted athlete. But Gerda believes that that is not all that has put her at the forefront of her chosen sport.
It's always quite a big discussion in the world of running, is whether it's talent or what really makes an athlete, a runner, good. But I think in my case, I'm a hard worker. Even before I started running, I was always a hard worker. I worked hard in school. Whatever I targeted, I made sure I tried to be better than what I was before. So I think for me, a lot of it is with hard work. Yes, there's certainly some sense of talent, of course, because I saw improvement quite rapidly, quicker than any of my other training friends were seeing improvement. So I think that's where the talent came in. But to be honest, I would much rather give the reward to hard work rather than talent.
As is often the case with rare sporting talents, Gerda caught the eye of a top coach early on. It was a chance meeting, but she still had to prove to him that she had what it takes to become a professional athlete.
I met the manager of Nedbank, Nick Bester, who is also my coach. I met him a few years ago at my first Comrades in 2015. And it was actually quite a funny story because I came to do the race and we were at a meet and greet evening, and him and Bruce Fordyce were there, and we sort of met in a very social way. But that night he said to me that if I ever manage to run under 3 hours for the marathon, I must phone him and he will help me and he will coach me. So those words really stuck to me. I don't know if he really meant it in that minute, but for me it was really, really like a target, and I managed to do that in the same year. So yes, after that I phoned him up and I said, I'm a keen runner, I would love to improve, and whether he would help me or not. So it is really where it started, and since then I've been part of the Nedbank running team. I've grown, I've developed under them. They've been helping me to, especially knowing what is right and wrong and which races to pick, the training, the preparation, everything. So I'm very, very grateful for everything that they've done for me until now.
The long-distance road running scene in South Africa has always been highly competitive, with numerous athletes producing top-class performances week in and week out, both locally and on the international scene. So who does Gerda think are her main competitors?
I think my biggest competitors are from my own team. It's a very, very tough, very strong team. There's a lot of athletes coming through. There's a lot of established athletes. So in a way, yes, it is competitive, but we also respect each other, and we use each other's energy to get where we are.
A focused training regime is the bedrock of any top athlete. Time on the road and in the gym is key, but so is structure and planning. So what does a typical day's training look like for Gerda Steyn?
Every day differs, but normally I love to do my run early morning. So I get up quite early. I go to bed really early, so I get up early morning, and I always have my breakfast and coffee before I go out for my run. And then yes, I would do my important session of the day. So that normally takes around 1 to 2 hours. And then after that I would go home and just freshen up a little bit before I start the rest of my training in the day. So for those who've seen or heard me talking, I'm quite a big believer in cross training. So I incorporate as many hours as I can in a day doing cross training. It keeps me fit, it keeps me strong, and most important, it keeps the injuries at bay. So around lunchtime I would go back to the gym and I would do my cross training. That involves, every day is different. I try to keep it interesting because that's just, it's not boring at all. It makes it more challenging for me too. So I try to do some cycling or swimming or core training or whatever I could find that day. Cross trainer, even rowing I sometimes incorporate. So that would be my second exercise of the day. And after that I would normally go home and I would go have lunch. And if I have time, I would go and rest. Otherwise, if I have an appointment, there's a lot of other appointments that goes along, sometimes physio, chiropractors. I would get that done sort of in the later hours of the day. And then around 5 o'clock, I would then do my third and last training of the day. And that normally includes either hiking, or a light run, a short, slow run, or even again in the gym, doing a little bit more of biking, etc. So that's normally a day, but it differs. Some days, if I have a really tough session in the morning, I would cut it down, only do a little recovery exercise in the evening. So yes, I try to keep my training interesting. I'm very, very fortunate that I can now spend 100% of my energy goes into running. So I'm very, very fortunate to have that, but I'm not taking it for granted. I'm really trying to make the best of every day.
With big goal events like the 56-kilometre Two Oceans Marathon and the 90-kilometre Ultra Comrades Marathon, one would expect that Gerda's preparations would include many hours of long training runs. However, interestingly, that is not the case.
My training is a bit different. I do less mileage. I do anything between 100 and 140 kilometers a week, which sounds a little bit insane if you compare that to other athletes. My competitors probably do double what I do in a week, and that's okay if it works for them. I do what works for me, I find yeah, like I said, it keeps the injuries at bay. But like I say, I'm not doing only little training. I still train all day, every day, but less mileage. But having said that, this year we've changed it a little bit. My training has been different because the races this year is different. I'm personally doing Comrades and Two Oceans this year, and they are very, very close to each other. So this year I've been doing my training a little bit different. I decided to incorporate some more mileage, especially now before Two Oceans. Leading up to Two Oceans, I increased my mileage, and with the idea of really taking it very easy in between the two races and allowing my body to recover properly.
In winning last year's Two Oceans Marathon, Gerda earned an invitation to the New York Marathon in November. This was clearly a huge opportunity for her to run on a world stage. However, she was up against the best runners in the world who run marathons only. So what was this experience like?
New York Marathon was a very special race for me in many ways. It was an eye-opener, if anything. To compete against the world's best athletes is something that I cannot even start to describe. It felt like I felt on the start line of the New York Marathon like I am a rock star. It was just incredible, and it was such a privilege as well to have that. And I think being an athlete, it's also important to put yourself against the world's best. It puts everything into perspective. Your world just widens so much if you are prepared to put yourself against the world's best. And yes, I think that's important, and I tried to bring back with me what I've learned there, and yes, just apply it to everyday life and to see where the world is going and how they are improving and how the women running is just absolutely booming in the world. So it's good to see it. It was a learning curve, if anything, and I'm grateful for having that opportunity.
The first two in the women's marathon in New York were Kenyan's Mary Ketani and Vivian Cheruiyot, and 9 of the top 10 fastest times over 42.2 kilometers are held by Kenyan or Ethiopian women. Did Gerda's New York experience give her the belief that the rest of the world can eventually match the East Africans?
I definitely think that they can. I think Kenya, Ethiopia, the African countries, East Africa, they've made themselves they've just made this whole aura around them that they are unbeatable. But if you look at the American ladies at the moment, there are some incredible times that they are putting in. It's absolutely incredible to watch it, and masses of them coming through. So I do think that anyone else, the rest of Africa, the rest of the world, Europe, anywhere else, I don't think for a minute we have to stand back for anyone else. Yes, it might have to do with their genes and whatever, but to be honest, if you work hard and if we do this and we keep pushing each other, it will also create a new era. I think it's exciting to think about it, because I do believe that, of course, they are the best in the world at the moment, but there's no reason for us to stand back for that and feel that we can't do what they can do. They work hard, they train from a young age, they have marathon on their mind since the moment they can run. And I think if we learn from that and we take on that mentality, I think definitely we'll be able to compete with them more in the future.
Most of the top male and female marathon runners from Kenya have and continue to train in Iten, a small town in the west of Kenya. Its 2,400-meter altitude is perfect for middle and long distance training. So would Gerda consider going there to train?
Yes, absolutely. I would love to see that, actually. I've never been to Kenya, but yes, the home of champions, I've got that planned. I've been to Lesotho now a couple of times for my training camp, and it's amazing to be at altitude and to see the benefits that you get. So that alone just makes such a big difference to my training and my racing. So to be able to train with them and see what they do, I can't wait for that opportunity. Hopefully it will be in the near future.
Gerda finished second, 5.5 minutes behind Anne Ashworth at last year's Comrades Marathon. Her time was 6 hours, 15 minutes and 34 seconds and was half an hour faster than in 2017 and 2 hours faster than her first run in 2015. and put her just under 5 minutes ahead of third place to Alexander Morozova of Russia. Being the goal-orientated person she is, Gerda had mixed feelings about her performance at Comrades.
Coming second in Comrades was, of course, it was slightly bittersweet for me. I'm not ungrateful for it. It is amazing. I'm really, my silver medal is beautiful, and I worked really hard for that. I put in everything into that race. I had a plan that was it was a tight plan. I knew that if I ran that, the time that I had in mind, it would have had to be a very good day for me in order to follow my plan. And to be honest, I followed my plan. I finished in the time that I set myself out to do. It was a fast time. I think it was the third or fourth quickest ever by a South African. Unfortunately, it wasn't good enough for the win that day, but it's probably also a lesson that I can learn. You don't just get everything, doesn't just fall into your lap. Sometimes you have to be second first before you can take the win. So it just made me more hungry to go back again.
Any sports person will tell you that the best lessons are learnt when they don't win. So what will Gerda take from last year's race into the 2019 Comrades Marathon that might help her to a win?
I don't know if there's a lot that I could have done on the day, but something that I'm definitely going to focus on this year is to put myself more in a way that I know that I might have to race, instead of just following my plan that I put out on paper for myself. So yes, on that day, I don't know if there was something that I could have done. The winning lady had an amazing day. She had an amazing race. I don't know if I was able on that day where I was to be better than her, but yes, in the future I'm definitely going to be focused on being ready to race when it comes to that, rather than just to follow my plan.
The 2018 Two Oceans Marathon came less than 2 months before the Comrades, and Gerda put her name in lights by scorching through the 56 kilometers in 3 hours, 39 minutes and 32 seconds to take the win ahead of Poland's Dominika Stelmach. She heads back to Cape Town as defending champion and is prepared for different tactics, as her rivals are likely to stick with her for much of the race.
It's so great for me to be back, to be able to compete again, to try and defend my title. It excites me so much. It's a lot different to last year, definitely. Last year I was sort of the new kid, and no one was really talking about me before the race, which was in a way very relaxing. But after last year, since the day I won that race, everything changed. My whole career changed, my life changed. So since then I knew that I would be back this year. I knew from that day I'm definitely coming back. This is not the last one that I'll ever do. So I've been preparing myself for it. I've been preparing myself just specifically that there might be more media, there might be more talks, and everything around it might just be more intimidating probably, but I'm ready for it and it doesn't really bother me. The pressure, I don't put too much pressure on myself. For me, I just work every day, I work hard. If I make it to the start line, I will give my all. So yes, it's a privilege to be fit and ready for it. So I'm feeling a little bit of pressure, but I'm not making, it's not changing anything. It's not going to change anything or how I run on race day.
With success on the road comes a high profile and, of course, a lot more sponsors. So how important are these sponsors to Gerda?
Sponsors plays a big role for athletes. It's not easy to make a living out of running alone. It all depends on racing and how it goes on the day. And as we know, running, it can be, you can in a second twist your ankle or get ill or something and not make it to the start line. So of course that's sponsors, that people, a real team that stand behind you is really, really important. And that doesn't always just mean guys who's there to take a picture with you when you win. It means the people who stand by you when things gets tough, and when things aren't so great, but they still stand by you and they believe in you. And I think that is really what I look for in sponsors, is not just someone who wants the limelight, but someone who would really be there for me and support me through thick and thin.
Key to success and longevity in a sport as grueling as long-distance running is pacing oneself, And that refers not only to in the races, but also about how many big events you can do in a year. Gerda has 2 clear goals in the first half of this year and a few more for the second half.
2 Oceans and Comrades is now the first 2 for the year. In the second half of the year is still fairly unsure for me. I'm hoping, I've got all my fingers crossed that I will make it into the World Athletics Championships team. Then I can represent South Africa, because that's something I've never had the opportunity of doing. And for me, that's a big dream and a big goal that I would love to see it realizing in this year. So I'm hoping to compete in that. That will be in the end of September in Doha. So it will be a bit challenging with the weather and everything there, but that's my next goal. If I don't do the marathon championships, I would then definitely focus on another marathon and try and improve my time on the marathon.
The ultimate goal for any athlete is surely the Olympic Games. And Gerda Steyn is looking at Tokyo 2020 as an opportunity to achieve that goal. Her marathon best of 2 hours 31:04 is just 1 minute and 34 seconds outside the Olympic qualifying time of 2:29:04. So her sights are set.
Yes, Tokyo 2020 is the Olympics, and that's definitely something that's on my mind. I'll try my best to qualify for the Olympics. They've lowered the qualifying times recently, so I'll still have to improve on my marathon time in order to be able to go to the Olympics. It's going to be a very high quality field. So yes, that's definitely something that I will focus on, but first just getting through the 2 ultras.
Gerda has for the last 5 years lived a commuter's life with a base in Johannesburg and one in the United Arab Emirates. This is as a result of her work as a quantity surveyor and a matter of the heart.
2014 I moved to Dubai, and that was for work. I got a job there as a quantity surveyor. So being a quantity surveyor in Dubai is the dream job with all the building construction going on. So yes, that's why I moved there initially, and then since moving there, I then started running, and also I met my fiance there. So nowadays I don't work as a quantity surveyor anymore, but my fiance still works there. So during quiet times in my calendar, I go back and I stay with him because he's there. So with the big races preparing for Comrades and 2 Oceans, I stay in Johannesburg and I train here, and I'm part of the whole vibe, and it's really, really special. So that's how I plan my year. But during off times, I go back and stay with him.
As a late developer in running, Gerda has some interesting thoughts on inspiring youngsters to reach the top.
I definitely have got advice for them. There's a few things that I wish I did different when I was a younger age, and that is certainly to explore my talent more. I never competed in cross country. I tried track running, but it never really worked out for me. Well, not at all worked out for me. But yes, I would definitely encourage them to try all sorts of sports, try everything, try as much as you can, be active every day, and just don't think that you have to stand back for anyone else, or because you're not good at something, that there's not something else that you can do, or there's always something else that you can try and something new. And if you work hard, you will find your place, and you will enjoy it. I'm 100% sure of it.
Gerda Steyn is a young woman with a long-distance world at her feet. Her late development into a full-time athlete means she could well have a long and distinguished career, and her versatility means we may well see her reach the top in more than one discipline. Good luck, Gerda.